How you doing, guys? Sam Spence here, and in this video I want to talk to you about the 6 common mistakes that I see newer property investors making. Listen up, I think this will really help you. Mistake number 1 that I see very commonly is when investors don't have an outcome in mind. So they really need to understand why they're investing in property. Some people see it as the next sexy thing to invest in. One of their friends is doing it. Well, some people I speak to want to invest in property for more cash, i.e. increasing their monthly cash flow so they can improve their standard of living. If that's you, that's cool, but why? You've got to identify the reason why behind that and have that outcome. Some people maybe don't need additional cash per month, but they want a nest egg for the future. Maybe they do have a pension, they want to diversify that pension, or maybe they don't have a pension and they want something for the future that may appreciate in value. So it doesn't really matter what that outcome is. You've just got to have a reason why as to you're doing this. Have it clear in your mind, think about it, write it down, because that will help you make decisions moving forward when you're looking at investment properties. Mistake number 2 that I see all the time is investors who maybe get a little bit of knowledge and then they're waiting for this perfect deal. Now, it begs the question, does the perfect deal even exist? Well, who knows? But all I'm saying is these types of people, I tend to speak to them every 6 months because they're still waiting for this perfect deal which has these perfect potential conceptual figures on paper. Well, I'm here to tell you that you can't bank potential, and the realities are when people realign their expectations with what is possible in the marketplace, they're getting fantastic properties. They're getting maybe 5 to 10 properties per year, and they're getting actual returns in their bank, not something written down just on a piece of paper. So for me, I would speak to somebody who is local in your area, knows the market really well, and or somebody maybe more experienced than you. Talk about what is and isn't possible and ensure your expectations are realigned with reality rather than conceptual or potential returns on paper. Mistake number 3, and this is a really common one. In the property industry, we typically want to work with what we call a motivated seller. And that means the person's motivated to move, all right? Now, what we don't want to become is a motivated buyer. And what that means is you'll buy anything and everything. Now, the issue with that is you're probably going to buy something that is not the best investment to buy. And I've done this myself before I knew much about property or knew anybody in property. I got an investment which, looking back, I wouldn't have done it a second time round. So I was a motivated buyer. Again, you need to understand and appreciate in your own mind what is a deal for you. What sort of returns are you looking for? And obviously that's relative to different people depending on what they're already getting. But take your time, but take action and make the right decisions and pull that trigger, but don't be a motivated buyer. I think this is number 4. Number 4 of the common mistakes that I see, particularly in newer investors, is they become really emotional about that purchase. So particularly when it comes to if we're doing a refurb or renovation, they want to buy a house that maybe looks really pretty and they would live in it. So it may have a bit of curb appeal. And then when it comes to a renovation, the renovation stage, if it needs a renovation, they want the colours that they would live in, or they want the reconfiguration of the kitchen or the bathroom that they would want. What we need to understand is that this is an investment property. It's not about me or you or what we would want, it's about what the local community wants, okay? So it's really important that you understand the local community, you understand the demand in your area, and you understand what your target tenant is actually looking for. That's the power of working with someone who has that knowledge in your area. So for example, when we work with our clients, we have a generic product of what we typically put in a property. We show them that before we obviously start it, and we make tweaks if necessary. But this generic product has a balance between the aesthetic side of things, obviously a quality side of things so it lasts long, but also there's got a commercial component to it, a financial component whereby it's hard wearing, it's the most value for money, and you're not spending over the odds and not getting any further return on your hard-earned money. Mistake number 5 is not having the right people in your team. So it's really, really important that you have certain people in your team around you that can assist you in getting that buy-to-let property. So you need to make relationships and build these relationships with finance brokers, solicitors, estate agents, potential property investment packages like myself who are going to help you through that process. You may even get a relationship with a surveyor. These are really, really important to have in your team, and it's good to speak to some of these guys before you make your purchase because you'll know where you stand. Number 1, from a financial perspective and what products are available to you, etc. Number 2, you'll have that relationship in place. You'll be able to pick up the phone to them. And number 3, obviously it helps with the speed of that transaction as well. So there's some really key people that you need in your team. And I see a lot of newer investors getting property and not building these relationships and doing it after they've secured the property, which for me is the wrong way around. And the last thing I see really, really commonly, and this is cool, particularly on your first one, but I see a lot of newer investors either not managing or overpaying on their renovation costs. Now, I think the first one, I think you're going to overpay because you're inexperienced. I think it's important to get that first one under your belt, and you maybe overpay, but that's the cost of learning and the cost of that experience, all right? But moving forwards, you really want to take note of what everything costs until you become very, very comfortable in pricing them refurbs up. I would encourage you to get 3 quotes for most jobs, and then obviously take an average of them quotes. And every time you do get a quote, you have a job or you have a refurb, make sure you write it all down. And then over maybe 3 properties, you can take an average, and it gives you real power and leverage then when you're viewing, offering, negotiating, because you have an understanding of what that refurb will take, and you've not always got to get your build around at the viewing every time. So there's my 6 common mistakes that I see newer investors making. I hope this was of help to you. Any questions at all, drop me a message. I'm more than happy to help. Have a fantastic day. Speak soon.